Are you a Halloween Horror Nights noob? Maybe you're an HHN vet? Whatever the case is, we're gonna help you out today. We are talking tips, tricks, advice, maybe some things that you overlook from time to time when you visit HHN. It doesn't matter if this is your first time or your last time, we will have some good advice for you. Now, we're gonna start right here on the first thing we wanna talk about outside of Universal Studios. And that is going to be to get here nice and early. Reason being, we're looking at a pretty empty entranceway into the park right now, but come opening night or just in general, anytime throughout the season, this is going to get packed with people. And not only that, as you come into the park, that parking is going to be absurd. So if you think you're gonna get in the park at 6:30 and you arrive at 6:30, you are going to be sorely mistaken. It takes a very long time to get into the park. So make sure when you are coming to Halloween Horror Nights, do not wait till the last minute. Try and get here, I would say, almost an hour earlier than when you wanna go into the park. Thankfully, Nicole and I come to this event so much that if we're a little late, it's totally okay, but so many times I see people getting stuck in the traffic just to get into the parking garage when it is like 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I'm like, oh no, these people are going to miss so much time inside of the park, and it is such a limited event when the night does come. Obviously, you think, oh, we got so many hours, but before you know it, you're gonna blink and the night's gone. So the thing that you need to remember is get here early. If you need to go hang out in City Walk, do so. Go grab a bite to eat, just hang around, or sit out front in front of the gate. They also do the opening ceremonies here, so you can just go ahead and watch the show if you want, but either way, you need to make sure to get here early. I cannot stress that enough.
So one thing that I definitely had to learn over the past few HHN seasons was that because time is so limited, you really want to prioritize getting the houses done and not exactly riding the rides. As much as I love riding the rides, I know that I'm here for Halloween Horror Nights, so I want to get the horror nights and the shows and the houses done, and the rides are going to be for last, or if there's extra time in our schedule. But if you have an express pass for the houses, that also does work for the rides. Don't forget that.
Definitely a great point. Oftentimes I feel like we try and get in a ride or two if we can. Most of the time I feel like we try Mummy or Rip Ride over here, sometimes even Men in Black, but it just doesn't always fit. Another big thing though is Nicole and I come so many times that it's okay if we miss a house or two during our visit for the night if we want to go ahead and ride a ride. But if you're only coming for one night specifically, you may not want to prioritize these rides. The next thing I want to talk about is the houses. A lot of people have kind of a hype list, or you're building up this idea of, oh, I want to hit this house, this house, this house, and maybe these houses don't really kind of matter to you for the night. So what I would do is find the houses that you want to prioritize and make sure to do those first before anything. So let's say maybe you've got 5 to 7 houses that you're really looking forward to do. Make sure to do those before you do anything else, just so that way you kind of get those done. Because if you leave and you say, I really wish I would have done my number 2 house, but the line was just long all night, you're gonna be more upset than if maybe your 10th house, you're like, I don't really care that much for it. If you didn't do it for the night, you're not gonna feel as bad. So prioritizing the houses that you're most interested in is gonna be the best option. Now, if you're with an entire group, obviously you got to make some way and determine who gets precedent, but either way, just make sure that you guys all hit the houses that you're looking most forward to, because if you don't do your bottom of the list houses, it might not be the worst thing. Look at all of the line queues that are starting to come out here, and as we kind of talk about that, I also want to mention, if you have Express, it's a little less important to prioritize because you should be able to do everything in one night, no problem. But again, if you're here for one night, you don't have Express, prioritizing these houses is kind of my biggest tip, in all honesty, making sure, because you just don't want to leave and feel like you didn't get to do the house that you wanted to do.
So I don't know about you guys, but one thing I can't stand when it comes to these events is being unorganized and wasting my time walking in circles. If you can take some time ahead of the event to find out where the houses you want to see are going to be laid out, that'll save you a lot of time so you're not walking around all night. The last thing I want to do is see a house in Men in Black, walk up to New York, and then walk right back to Simpsons, because Simpsons and Men in Black are so close. So look at those houses ahead of time and figure out how to optimize your route.
And just to piggyback off that, I come here for updates pretty much every few days, and you guys have seen that, but just so you know, when I'm walking around the park, I'm here for almost 2 hours, and that is just like circling the park once, maybe twice. So it does go to show you how much you're gonna be walking. So if you are doing a bad route like that, like she mentioned, so if you're going way back to Men in Black and you're coming over here to Fallon, and then all of a sudden you're going out to like ET, you're making these really long treks, that time adds up and your night is gonna get away from you very fast. Now, while we're over here, I want to talk a little bit about the Tribute Store, since we are just a few days away from annual pass previews, and then the entire store will be open to the public. But let's talk about shopping. So I do highly recommend checking out the Tribute Store. If you guys are only coming for one night though, it is hard to kind of fit in because it's such a detailed store. So if you can come in during the day, that's the best opportunity. If you can come in, check it out, go have a good time inside, and then you don't feel like you have to rush. It doesn't feel like you're missing out on houses, on scare zones, on shows, things like that. Come check out the Tribute Store. It is one of the coolest things that you can actually experience during HHN. But the thing is, it's open all day. So you don't have to do it during the event. But if that is your only time to do so, I guess go ahead and carve out at least a little bit of time to check it out.
If you are just specifically looking for merch, you can also shop out at the Universal Store on City Walk before you come to the event.
Most of the merch that I have seen dropped has been in City Walk so far. So my guess is even what we're gonna see here at the Tribute Store should actually be over there as well. And there might be a few specific items to the Tribute Store, but I think, again, if you need pretty much anything, head out to City Walk. You can get it all there before you come into the event.
Dylan and I say it all the time, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate when you are at these events. There are these drink fillers all around the park, and it is so easy to fill up your water bottle with water here. And if you have a drink cup, you can use these throughout the park. But remember, when you come to HHN, if you want to bring in a water bottle, that bottle has to be empty. Nothing inside except for ice. And that's only sometimes depending on who your security guard is. No Gatorade, no Prime, no Diet Coke, no nothing. Only a water bottle, and a water that has not been opened is going to be allowed into the park.
I do want to actually piggyback off of that because, yeah, we always tell you stay hydrated. Even during non-HHN season times, we're always like, stay hydrated, get your electrolytes, everything like that. But as we are standing in front of the food booths here, and these are my favorite themed ones, the Ghostbusters, they look fantastic. That's another thing. You need to make sure that you are eating throughout the night. You are going to be here for hours, especially if you are here from open to close. It is many, many hours. So making sure to have food in your system is a priority as well. A lot of people are always drinking, but they're not always getting enough food. You're going to burn a lot of calories. Your adrenaline's gonna be high. You're gonna be sweating. There is a lot that is going on, again, in a very long night. So you don't necessarily have to eat from the food booths. Whether you want to bring some food or you want to eat at other places around the park, I think it's a good opportunity to try some food options here at the event. But I would just say overall, make sure that you are cutting out a little bit of time to eat. Whether that's in line, I guess, that's fine too, but just make sure you are not going without having a few calories in your diet here.
It is going to rain. Come prepared.
We were delayed today coming to the park because there were absurd storms for hours here. Super dark clouds, thunder all over the place, lightning all over the place, crazy storms. The park was flooded for a while. It is going to rain. I checked the weather this week. Every single day shows rain. It's just how it is this time of the year here in Central Florida. So when you come to Halloween Horror Nights, and people are gonna tell you this all the time, I feel like this is the most common tip, have everything ready. So that means have your ponchos, have extra socks, potentially extra clothes depending. And here's the big thing. Some people will say, make sure you wear really comfortable shoes, but if your best pair of shoes is $150 like Nikes or something, and they're the most comfortable that you want to walk around the park in, if they get wet, they're probably ruined. We have ruined, I think, 4 pairs of shoes now at this point from opening night alone. So just keep that in mind. Having waterproof shoes is probably the best option of some sort. I like to wear either slides or some sort of slip-on shoe that if it does get wet, it's totally fine. It's not the most comfortable, but at least I know that if they get rained on, they're gonna be okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is for anybody that might have sensory sensitivities, and that is going to be able to find a place that you can just kind of relax and get away from all of the craziness here at Halloween Horror Nights. Now, the Death Eaters do tend to roam around back here, but they don't sit out here the entire time, as we can see by some of the decorations and the stage here that they do have. However, it is a great place to kind of come and get away. By coming back here to Diagon Alley, it just allows you to kind of just get away from things. You can go into the benches in the corner. I don't think they're gonna come mess with you anyway, but also it's just a place that you can just kind of get away. The number of times I have come back here to Diagon Alley just because I'm like, I just wanna kind of like relax, not necessarily any other reason than I just wanna sit, vibe out, and have a good time. I will come back here, even to a spot like this, right in the corner, hang out on the bench and just relax. It'll let you kind of get away from all of the craziness that is happening outside. Another thing I want to talk about with sensory things would just be earplugs. As we are right in front of the brand new Nightmare Fuel show, it gets pretty loud in there, and the houses do as well. But one big thing is just wearing headphones or kind of earplugs is a big way to kind of bring those sensory issues down. I deal with a lot of kind of sensitivity to loud noises in my ear, so wearing headphones or earplugs just really helps out a lot, especially in the houses. There's a few things inside the houses, for example, like when they do a big dropping of wood and it hits the floor, it's very loud and it really almost hurts my ears. So things like that just really kind of help out when I'm kind of going through the houses. Having those earplugs do help. And then also even Nightmare Fuel. There was a few scenes last year where it was really loud bangs, and I know some people didn't want to actually watch the show because of those noises. So that is something to kind of keep in mind. Having earplugs just helps out a ton that way. And then again, it kind of brings those sensory issues down just a little bit. Speaking of Nightmare Fuel, there are 4 show times, but I think Nicole has a few ideas about it.
So those show times fill up super fast. You can see the switchbacks are already outside, and you want to make sure to get to the show time, I would say 45 minutes prior to the show, because the lines will be full out here and you'll walk up to join it, and there's already a team member out here holding an at capacity sign. And I know you're here for the houses, but the show is really cool, and I loved it last year, and I can't wait to do it again this year, and we will be here early to make sure we can see it.
That is actually a good segue into one of our next points here, and that is going to be to kind of prioritize your route a little bit, kind of like what Nicole was saying earlier, except understand that if you're coming from multiple nights or you have Express, everything changes. So for example, Nicole and I will have Express Pass, so on opening night, there's a chance we could see this show without any issues, but obviously it's gonna depend on the wait time. But if you're coming from multiple nights, optimizing what you want to do each night, I think is going to help out a lot. So maybe you want to get 4 or 5 houses for a night. Maybe you want to watch one of the shows. Maybe you want to try out a food booth and check out maybe 2 or 3 of the scare zones pretty in depth. And then the next night you want to do some more. So understanding that just because you're coming from multiple nights doesn't mean you necessarily have to do every single house every single night and skip out on the extra things that you can do here. Funny enough, we were coming in here just to actually check out some of the HHN merch, but I guess it's also kind of just another good tip, right?
Right? I mean, this is probably the coldest store in all of Universal. So if you need to get out of the heat and cool down, Men in Black store is where it's at.
1000%. It is so cold in here. This is the place to be if you ever need to just chill out. We are checking out some of the merchandise here. It is another way that you could come shop if you want. And obviously we have a little boo bonanza going on out here. Now for HHN 2024 in particular, it does look like we have some weird locations for houses potentially. So like I mentioned, understanding where these houses are going, the routes that they are kind of entering and exiting is going to be a big part. We haven't seen a house over here before. We are right next to the Simpsons ride. And I don't know, are we going out this direction? Are we using the queue here? I don't really know yet, but we do have what looks to be a house portal right over here. Now that we're over here by ET and DreamWorks, just to kind of capitalize on optimizing your route there, just so you know, I don't see any house portals over here yet. There might be one, but just to kind of talk about that optimizing of the routes. So let's say, for example, that house that we're assuming is going to be somewhere over there by the Simpsons ride, let's say you enter over there and then you exit over here by ET. Well, if they do have a house over here, which they normally do, and the portal is right here, your best bet is to then just circle through and then enter into this house here. Otherwise, we're going down that path of what Nicole was talking about earlier, where maybe you're going over to Major Suites in San Francisco, and then you're heading over to Jimmy Fallon, and then you're heading over to Simpsons Land, and now you're just going all over the place. So that optimization of the routes is kind of a big deal, especially if you're trying to maximize your time. Now again, if you have Express, it's not as big of a deal if you're coming from multiple nights. Also not that big of a deal, but if you are only here for one night, that route optimization could be a make or break whether or not you get all of the houses done. I guess something I should just point out as we're walking this direction, some of the food and beverage options are a little kind of hidden. So this one here is right by Animal Actors, and we have been covering this during updates, but just so you know, it's kind of back behind everything, and you may not realize that it's here unless, again, you see the signage for it. You might just walk right on by. And there's a bar over by the Fisherman's Cove underneath there, kind of right off of Pier 41. And that's another thing that you might just miss if you're not paying enough attention or understand that you kind of have to be directed that direction.
If possible, I would avoid doing a full day at the park and then a full night at HHN because you will be exhausted. I did a rope drop last year into an all-nighter at HHN, and I was falling asleep outside the Minion Cafe in the middle of all of the noise here at HHN. So if you could take a few hours to go back to your hotel and just relax for a little bit, I would really try to prioritize that.
It was actually pretty funny. We were sitting right over at Minions Cafe in our typical spot. If you guys have been watching us for a few years, you know that we have a nice little spot there in the corner over there. And yeah, it's a nice little getaway, but she was falling asleep at the table. And it's true, they rope dropped. They tried to do an entire night here at HHN. It's a lot, and it is very exhausting. And talking about exhausting, I would probably bring a portable charger because your phone will get exhausted. It's going to lose its battery. When you're in line, especially if you're just sitting there for hours in line, you're probably on your phone. You might be conversing with the group that you're with, whatever it might be, but that battery will go down in time, especially if you are at the park for a long time. That is something to kind of keep in mind. It might be nice to have a portable charger on hand to keep your stuff up and running. Now, kind of the last bit that we want to talk about would be the actual houses themselves and the runs that you get. So sometimes you might not get the best run. That is just the nature of it, depending on if they're doing a cast change, or maybe you just kind of had a weird spot in the conga lines. It could just mean that you don't have the best run. So what I would say is, if possible, rerun the houses that, number one, you might have not had a good run in, and number two, maybe your favorite houses. Now, if you have Express, you obviously can go ahead and do a normal standby and then an Express, so you could kind of do everything twice. You might be pushing your time a little bit there, but I would say, utilizing Express later in the night can also be a little bit more beneficial. Right as the event starts, typically the lines aren't too bad, especially if you did something like Stay and Scream. But you can actually do something on your phone where you set a little alert if the house kind of drops to a certain time. So maybe you went ahead and did the Ghostbusters house and it was an 80-minute wait, but you're like, I want to do it again, I just don't want to wait 80 minutes. You can actually set a timer or basically a notification to let you know on your phone whenever one of the houses reaches a certain time. So for the rides, you can set it that whenever a ride maybe reaches 40 minutes or under, it'll send you a little notification, and then you can go ahead and head over towards that ride. So I think you can do the same thing with the houses when those are released inside of the app. Now that we are inside of the app, we'll go ahead and show you how this works. So we can see right now Velocicoaster's at 50 minutes. So if we actually click on that ride itself, it's gonna pop up and it's gonna show there's 50 minutes, but right there you can see where it says wait time alerts. So you'll click on that, and then it'll pop up this little menu, and it says the app will alert you if this attraction's wait time is updated to at or below the time you set. So maybe we wanna say, you know what, if Velocicoaster went to 30 minutes, we'll go ahead and ride it. So you can set it right there, and then you can set the alert, and then it'll send you a notification if it happens. So you could do the same thing, I'm assuming, with the houses once they then enter the app. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list. If you guys feel like you have some good tips, tricks, advice, or anything, please leave it in the comments below so other people can go ahead and see what you have to say. Everybody's got their own experiences. This is just what we see. So hopefully this was good for you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you did enjoy today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.